Psalm 25 at a snail's pace. We looked at verse 2. I trust in you, my God. Do not let me be disgraced or let my enemies rejoice in my defeat. No one who trusts in you will ever be disgraced. And that is a bold statement. Is it a promise? It is in one important way. There's a sense in which anyone who puts their trust in God will not ultimately be disgraced. Now, I have to say, the reality of the world I live in is that there are times that it appears that those who trust in God are disgraced. And on just a here and now level, yeah, it feels and looks like disgrace. But we got to ask, since we believe that the here and now is not all there is, then is it possible that there is an ultimate disgrace that the man, woman, boy, girl who put their trust in God will never experience? And I believe the answer to that is yes. What in time looks like a disgrace and feels like a disgrace is not ultimate. I'm out on the fringe of trying to explain away what appears to be a pretty solid promise from David's pen and lips. No one who trusts in you will ever be disgraced. Now, here's another way to add some more into this, I think, in terms of interpreting it, has to do with Hebrew poetry and the balance and symmetry of Hebrew poetry. It wasn't about rhyming. It wasn't really about meter. It was about balance and symmetry. And so here we have, no one who trusts in you will ever be disgraced, but now the balance. Disgrace comes to those who try to deceive others. Now, is God promising me I will never feel or experience disgrace? No, that's not the promise. And really, in my life, there have been times I've been disgraced. And all of those times were the result of me not trusting God. Me trusting me, or me maybe trusting someone or something else. But when I fully put my trust in God, the odds of me being disgraced reduce dramatically. Okay, but disgrace comes to those who try to deceive others. It's not about disgrace coming to those who don't trust God. He puts a specific behavior with that. Disgrace comes to those who try to deceive others. That's sure. That just doesn't happen in our all the time. We have truth and advertising laws and policies, but that doesn't keep advertisers from making claims that are just not supportable. It doesn't keep authorities from bending the results of scientific surveys and analyses. I had my advisor in my master's programs. He was one of the smartest people I've ever been around, and was not a Christian, but still a very smart individual. And probably the main class that I had misgivings about, that I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, was a statistical analysis class. I am not I'm horrible at numbers, and I'm not just speaking that prophecy so that I will be. I'm I'm going back in my own history since the 8th grade, okay? And I thought, I gotta have, this is a required course. It's not like, well, it's one of many options. No. I was trying to get my master's degree in as short a period as I possibly could without cheating myself. So I wasn't into a whole bunch of elective courses. I was like, here's what I've got to get. Statistical analysis was one of them. Anyway, I was talking with my advisor, Dr. Holmes, and I shared with him kind of my misgivings. And then we were talking about statistics and statistical analysis. And he said, there are 3 kinds of liars in the world. There are liars, there are damn liars, and there are statistical liars. Pardon my French, I'm just quoting Dr. Holmes. And what he meant by that was, if you, by constructing your device, you can make statistics say what you want them to say. I don't want to be political in this, but you look around. I don't care which side of the aisle you're looking at. There's a lot of statistical lying going on. There are people who are extrapolating meaning and application out of statistics that I think is a dishonest use of statistics. And again, this is not a Republican or Democrat thing. This is about human nature. It's about spoilage of what God has given us as opportunities to steward. And the one who is disgraced, well, disgrace comes to those who try to deceive others. When someone deceives me, when someone tries to deceive you or me, again, is this a promise, a hard-clad, no exceptions promise, or is it a principle? I think it's a principle that disgrace comes to. It's as though disgrace will find them. It's the idea, I think, of give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves. But it doesn't happen on my time frames very often, as in I don't remember it ever happening on my time frame. Okay. Then David makes another kind of abrupt shift. Show me the right path, O Lord. Point out the road for me to follow. That is not quite as abrupt as I first thought it was, because what we're talking about is the contrast between those who put their trust in God and those who don't, and the fact that if you're going to put your trust in God, you got to follow a certain path. Show me the right path, O Lord. And David talks a lot about paths in his Psalms. And in the Old Testament especially, there's a lot of times where this word picture of a path as it connects with God's design. And so we have got to do some thinking about what path we're on. I've grown up in a world, and I think probably you have too, that has advocated the idea of choose your own path. Don't let somebody else choose your path. One of the most popular graduation speech themes is find your passion and follow it, no matter what. Well, that's a nice I'm sorry if this is offensive, but it's a very uninformed opinion. Here's the thing. If I want to go to Phoenix, I need to take a road that will get me to Phoenix. Well, duh. Hey, you know what? If you want to live your life in trust of God, in faith, and according to His design, then that eliminates a whole big world, in fact, of paths. Is there only one path to God's design? Sort of. Jesus said, I am the way, insert path, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. There's only one way to find God, to fully connect with Him, and that is by Jesus, through Jesus, right? Now, does everyone come to Jesus in the same way? No. Does it always look the same when people have come to Jesus? Well, no. But there is a path. There is a path that if you want to follow Jesus, you got to choose His path. What does that path look like? Well, I think the church has done a pretty poor job of laying out what that path is and looks like. What we have said is, you better, okay, now I'm working from my own experience, but you better follow God's path. Quit following all those other paths. And that's as far as it went. But nobody really told me about, where do I find this path you talk about? I want that path. Emotionally, I want to be on God's path. I think intellectually I want to be on God's path, but that's like saying, dude, you got to take the road to Phoenix, and not giving you a map or a GPS or signs along the highway, for crying out loud. What is the right path? Well, I don't like this very much, but I think it's the case. We find the right path sometimes by eliminating the wrong paths. For instance, if I want to go to Phoenix, I eliminate the path that takes me to Los Angeles. I also eliminate the path that takes me to Reno. I eliminate the path that takes me to Salt Lake City. By eliminating those paths, then the potential right path begins to become a little more clear, which happens to be, in my world, Highway 93. Okay, what are some paths that we can eliminate if we're going to find the path, the right path? Well, first of all, this requires discernment, and some people are going to say, well, you're just judging. I don't mean to judge. I only mean to observe and discern. There are people who are living their lives in a way that leads in directions far from the right path. Eliminate their path. How do I know who these people are? Well, right. So if I'm going to eliminate the wrong paths, I have to be able to identify what makes them wrong. Well, here's what makes them wrong. They don't agree with God, with what God has given us as His design. Where do I find that? I find it in the Old Testament and the New Testament, the Bibles we have today. This is not, some people say, well, the law, it doesn't apply anymore, so get that out of your mind. I disagree. I'm not bound by the law in the same way that David was, but the law instructs me in ways that connect with God. And in the New Testament, then the gospel writers and the apostles give us specific instruction on what this life according to God's design is. So you start there. And I'm going to have to come back to this because it's a very big subject next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.